Converting between metric units. You may have done before. A lot of them, a lot of times you just kind of do it mentally and say, well, 1 meter, 100 centimeters, and so on. Maybe we should write down at the right here what we know about equivalence here. 1 meter is how many centimeters? Are we okay? Should I pause this? Can we go on? 1 meter, how many centimeters? 100, right? Or it's equal to how many millimeters? How many millimeters? Well, if each centimeter is 1,000, right? If each centimeter is 10 millimeters, right? There's 100 centimeters. This thing's 100 centimeters long. Each one of them is 10 millimeters. If you guys could stop talking individually, that would be good. There's 1,000 on there. We need to know that fact for working with things here. If we are trying to change things, and then I guess we could, it's not a complete list, but 1 kilometer, why is it called a kilometer, kilometer? What does kilo mean? 1,000, right? Kilometer is 1,000 meters. When you start changing things like kilometers to millimeters or kilometers to centimeters, it becomes trickier for how to do it. So I'm going to show you this thing called unit analysis. It's a way you could change things and make sure you're getting it right. So you're given some numbers here like this. This many centimeters. The distance from the Earth to the Moon, that's obviously a ridiculous unit to use for the distance from the Earth to the Moon. The more appropriate unit for a distance from Earth to Moon would be, what do you think? Light years. Well, it's not quite big enough for light years. But light years is a distance measurement, isn't it? Kilometers. We can't afford to get silly in here, okay? We're going to run out of time. You're going to end up using up everybody's time being silly. What's a more appropriate for this? A worm measures 0.0019 meters. Well, obviously not in. What does that mean? What's that the same as? If we want to convert these two numbers, let's start with the distance to the Moon. If you have this 38,440,300,000 centimeters. If you would like to change it directly to kilometers, you can do this. You notice over here that what they do is they say, to convert from meters to millimeters, they start with a measurement like 25 meters. They multiply it by a fraction that looks like this. What's true about those two things in that fraction? 1,000 millimeters and 1 meter. What's true about those two things? 1,000 millimeters and 1 meter. What do you know about those two things? They're the same length, right? 1,000 millimeters and 1 meter. If you're multiplying by something divided by itself, this fraction is actually equal to 1 because it's 1,000 millimeters over 1 meter. That's equal to 1. If you multiply something by 1, 25 times 1, what do you get? You get the same number back, so that's important to realize. But what it allows you to do is it allows you to change units here. Because what you can do is you can say, if I have, the other thing that you need to know is from perhaps grade 9, if I had x and I times it by y over x, what would happen to these two x's since I have one on the top and one on the bottom here of my fraction? If I have one on the top and one on the bottom, I can cross that one off and I can cross this one off, and what am I left with? Just this, right? So when we're converting measurements, we can use those two concepts here. If I want to get rid of centimeters, I am going to make a fraction here that's equal to 1. I'm going to put centimeters on the bottom, and because then I can cross those out because I got centimeters on the top and centimeters on the bottom. And I want to change it to kilometers. We need to know how many centimeters there are in a kilometer. First think about how many centimeters there are in a meter. Well, how many centimeters are there in a meter? Centimeters in a meter? 100, right? So we need to know how those compare to each other, right? There's 100 centimeters in a meter. So then, if I'm talking about a kilometer, how much bigger is that? Well, you can start with a kilometer if you want. 1 kilometer is 1,000 meters, right? And then if I wanted to make it centimeters, how many more zeros do I need? 2 more, right? There's 100,000 centimeters. 100,000 centimeters in 1 kilometer. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, you're making it way more complicated than it actually needs to be. The reason I'm showing you this with units you know is because as soon as we get to units that you're less familiar with, like inches and feet and other things, and when you're going to do this in science courses you take, you're going to do unit analysis all the time. This is what unit analysis is. It allows you to say, well, I'm multiplying by a fraction that's equal to 1, and this allows me to say the centimeters are going to disappear. And I know that since this is on the bottom, I need to divide by that. If I divide by 100,000, what's the simple way to do that without a calculator? If I divide by 100,000, what's the simple way to divide that by 100,000? Yeah, get rid of the 5 zeros, right? If I cross that out, and I cross out 5 zeros here, what am I left with? 384,403. It's that many kilometers. Obviously, that took longer than it's going to take you when you do this because of all the explanation, but let's do the other one and then see where we are. Oops, not going to work. Let's do the other thing, the length of this worm that I think is pretty short, actually. What is it, 0.0019 centimeters? Meters. If you want to get rid of meters, what do you think would be a useful, what do you think the best unit would be to use for the measurement of this worm? Probably, it seems like a pretty short one, but let's change it to millimeters. If I want to change this to millimeters, and I want to get rid of meters, if I want to get rid of meters using unit analysis, I put it on the bottom. And I put millimeters on the top. 1 meter is equal to how many millimeters? 1,000, right? Then it tells you, well, I can cross out these meters because I want to get rid of them. And I know I need to multiply by 1,000 because it's on top, right? 0.0019 times 1,000. What does that give you? 1, 2, 3, right? 1.9 millimeters. That's a pretty small worm. Obviously, it's some tiny little one swimming around in water, not an earthworm, I guess. Or it's a baby worm. I don't know. Okay? I would like you to try right now the following. Okay? I would like you to do this. Either now, whatever you can do now in the next 3 or 4 minutes, because we're going to run out of time at some point here. Try doing it using unit analysis, and also if you want, try doing it just using what you know. Like if you can see, I'm going to convert this. I'd like you to have a look at both ways, using unit analysis and just by intuitively converting it. Somehow justify what unit you choose. It doesn't tell you what to convert it to, but you can change it to some unit and write a really quick explanation for why you chose that. And then for next time, we're going to have to finish this. We're going to have to finish this next time. So I am likely going to say that's it for what you need to do for next time is that. Okay, right there. Just that. I'm going easy on